Hey everybody, my name is Tyler Bell. I write horror. I like to talk about horror. Welcome inside the studio for another horror review. Today we are talking about Midsommar, the 2019 film by Ari Aster, starring Florence Pugh, Jack Rayner, and Wilhelm Blomgren. This film is a particularly controversial film, especially amongst horror fans who love it or hate it so bad that they travel forum to forum across Facebook telling everybody how bad it sucks. And we're going to get into that a little bit, but first, the overall plot. Florence Pugh's character, Dani, the main character of this, is a young 20-something college-aged student in a relationship with Jack Rayner's character, Christian. It is a negative relationship. It is very bad from the get-go. And you can tell that it's on the rocks, and they are about to break up right away from the beginning of it. But a unexpected tragedy occurs in the form of the suicide of Florence Pugh's younger sister. And after that, the main events of the actual plot start off, in which this couple and a couple of their friends, played by William Jackson Harper, Will Poulter, and Elora Torchia, Archie Maduke, I can't remember all of these characters very well, and we'll get into that deeper into the plot. But the lot of them go to Sweden for a festival put on by their friend Pele. So he's an actual Swedish dude, and he is part of a traditional village somewhere in rural Sweden where they do a Rumspringa. I think it's no, that's not right. It's a Midsommar festival. It's in the fucking title. And hijinks happen there. The film is beautiful. It's probably one of the prettiest films I've seen in the horror genre. I know people that are watching this are already a little bit upset, but it is one of the prettiest shot films I've seen in the quote-unquote horror genre in a long time. The Swedish countryside is especially beautiful. It's very spring-like. It's a lot of very warm, earthy tones. The bit of color that's in it that's not white or brown is the brilliance of the fresh flowers that are growing there. Soon after Florence Pugh's character, Dani, I can't remember these characters' names. They don't leave that strong of an impression, but Florence Pugh's character arrives with the rest of them in tow. They find that the place is a little weird. It seems at first to be a sort of almost Woodstock hippie commune of sorts. They hang out with the young people doing psychedelic drugs. I can say that, and a lot of people I've seen that have done reviews of this agree that the drug scenes are fairly accurate. And I have to say that from firsthand experience, they pretty much are. They do some mushrooms. They get in touch with themselves, and then they decide to stay there for the entire week or multi-weeks, whatever it is, of the festival, and sort of ingrain themselves in the culture. I can't really talk about the entirety of the plot of this movie because it is 2 hours long, and stuff is both constantly happening and also nothing is happening at all. It is a film almost utterly devoid of violence, so the few moments of violence are particularly stark. In the pre-Sweden scenes back in America, ostensibly I believe they're in America, everything is very dark. It is very much the end of winter, rainy, wet. The suicide scene in particular, in which Florence Pugh's character kills not just herself, but incidentally Florence Pugh's parents as well, is wonderful. It's actually amazing. It definitely is one of those things that sold me on finishing the movie out, despite its startlingly long runtime of 2.5 hours, which is about an hour longer than the average horror movie, and it does not use that time well. The movie is stretched start to finish, and most of what fills its spaces is supposed to be this sort of culturally odd shock and awe sort of thing. And none of it really lands that well because the space between them is so large, and the events themselves are not particularly shocking. People disappear a little bit here and there. The only people that die on screen after her family, well, I mean, a few people die on screen, but the only people to really die on screen are two old folks who they fall. And that's the sort of the impetus, that the blood in the water thing. I saw this just about a month ago, and I can literally remember almost nothing about it except for how pretty it was. And very much it is like a fever dream or a day trip, and that it seems extraordinarily important when you're watching it, but by the end you find that it's actually an extraordinarily shallow experience. The main plot really is that Christian and Florence Pugh's character Danny are on the rocks, and it's actually a breakup movie, not a traditional one in that sense. But by the end, obviously they resolve it in a horror movie fashion. Not everybody walks away safely, and that's kind of it. There is very little else. I'm actually finding myself struggling to find things to talk about that are good about the movie. The score is what you would expect. It's very sparse. I think it's trying to elicit almost a feel from like The Witch or something. What I can remember of it is just basic, sparse strings, I think. So, not much to say about it. The cinematography is amazing. The plot is pretty good start to finish, I would say. And that kind of gets into where the why people love it and why people hate it. It's actually a good movie. It is a good movie. It's a fucking garbage horror movie. Flat. It's not a fucking horror movie at all. The movie's not scary. And I don't even think it's really supposed to be. And I think that's why critics like it. Most movies that are released, horror movies especially, are panned by critics for just reasons. Not even good ones. Very, very typical. I live in a loft on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Poo-poo, that horse shit. And those same poo-poo people fucking love this movie. I actually enjoyed it. Once I decided that it wasn't a horror movie anymore and was not going to get scary, because it's kind of just interesting as aren't other cultures sort of weird story. It's a good fish out of water with extraordinarily high stakes at the end type film. But even that grading, I think after a little bit of time, is starting to wear a touch thin with me. So I don't know if I can still give it as good of a grade as I thought I might actually when I started doing this review. And really, I don't have much else to say about it. I thought I'd have a lot, but I don't. So let's just hop into grades. For competence, I would say a 9. Flat 9. Well written for what it is. Well scored. Well produced. Very, very pretty. Most of that 9 comes from it. It looks really, really good. In general, it's a competent 8. But the cinematography and some of the acting choices, I would say move it up to a 9 for competency. Enjoyability, I would put it at a 7. Which is still going to put it higher than my recommendation rating in its own way. So yeah, for enjoyability, it would be a 7. I didn't feel like the time I spent watching the movie was wasted. When I go into a film, especially a film that someone says is a horror film and doesn't look like it from the outside, I always take it with a grain of salt. That was very much the case in the situation surrounding Midsommar, and it was probably the best self-advice I've ever given. The plot is very reminiscent of Wicker Man. Wicker Man, the 1979 version, I think it is, or 1969, that's a great horror movie. And it is a horror movie. The intent is to horrify. The intent is carried through in a way that you could definitely see being scary. Obviously, like any 1960s horror movie, mileage would vary. But I would definitely say that is very much a horror movie. Midsommar, I am going to give a 0 for horror. It's not a horror movie. I don't care what Ari Aster says about his film. And I don't care where this is put. Actually, even on IMDb, the 3 genres given for it are drama, horror, and mystery, with horror being the second one. And I really think it was only even billed like that really just to sell it because Ari Aster's coming off of Hereditary, which is a really well-respected horror film, and it was just a cheap marketing ploy. And I don't think I don't think you can make an argument outside of that. I think that's pretty much just what it is. My final recommendation: avoid it. Avoid this film. It's good. It's competent. I enjoyed it. I don't think you will. I don't think most people will enjoy Midsommar. I could not see any regular horror fan, anybody that likes movies, especially like, you know, grungier, really like traditional horror films, Hellraiser, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, unless you have really eclectic tastes like I do, not good, eclectic, I don't see you liking this very much. I don't see drama and mystery people enjoying the drama or mystery of this very much. It's a good movie. It's competent. It doesn't have a lot of appeal is the ultimate thing. So my final recommendation for Midsommar is going to be avoid it. Unless you're morbidly interested, but don't expect to have a good time watching it. Hey everybody, that's the review. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something. Although there really wasn't that much to talk about, was there? Hey, if you like this content, please take a second to like this video. Please subscribe, share this on social media and wherever. If you think I'm crazy wrong and I look stupid, especially, I would always love some viral fame for looking like a fucking moron. If you don't think that I have the chops to write my own stuff and you want to see if I know what I'm talking about when I talk all this shit, check out these videos right here. Right here. That's a link to my podcast, The Westside Fairytales, a dark fiction and horror anthology. We have new stories come out the first Friday of every month, except for during the summer when I take a couple months off to write more things. You can subscribe to that on any podcast catcher that you have out there. And check out some of our other reviews if you want to see my opinions on other horror media, including books, movies. We'll be talking about video games and other things. And until next time, as always, stay safe out there.